Austin, Texas is home to some of the best food you'll find anywhere and some of the best entertainment as well. Today's show comes in the high-speed variety as IMSA's VP Racing SportsCar Challenge takes to the asphalt at Circuit of the Americas for what rodeo folks would call the second go-around for the day. Welcome to round 4 of the 2026 season with Multiclass sprint racing just around the corner. Looking down at the racetrack, absolutely beautiful weather here in Austin this afternoon. Temperature back down into the 70s, but that track temperature is going to stay up. Welcome in, everyone. Brian Till along with Ryan Marine. And I'll tell you what, Ryan, it doesn't get any better. If you want to go racing in Texas, now's the time to do it. Slight breeze, and look at this beautiful weather.
Oh, fantastic. This is picture perfect. Exactly what everybody in this grid was hoping for when they looked at the forecast, especially after sweating through the race earlier today. They've got that in the rearview mirror now. They'll be focused on the race to come here in just a moment.
See the sun beginning to set and the shadows on the racetrack. Take us around Circuit of the Americas, Ryan.
Well, this is a truncated version of the track, not the full course, but still plenty of challenges here at Circuit of the Americas. It's just over 2.25 miles around. They say 20 turns, but actually they cut out a few of those. We jump a quarter or two, but we still have some of the classic sections of this racetrack. The S's, the stadium section, and then that triple apex corner that's modeled off of Istanbul Park. Really fantastic racetrack. The drivers love coming here. It offers a lot of challenges, and they come at you fast and furious without that long back straightaway, which is cut out on this version of the track.
Okay, the one thing it does cut out, too, is that long back straightaway from turn 11 down to turn 12 that we see the Formula One cars run and the sports cars run when we're here. And so that really kind of takes away any top speed kind of aspect. If you're trying to trim the car out for higher top speeds, really the only place you can take advantage of that is up the front straightaway, but then you need that downforce for the heavy braking in turn 1.
Yeah, it's true. It takes away some of that compromise that you have on the full course, but that said, still plenty of challenges for engineer and driver alike. And you're right, that long run down the front pit straight into turn 1, up the hill, great braking zone, passing opportunity there. We saw that on full display, didn't we, in race number 1 earlier today?
Absolutely. I say the second go around because we had one 45-minute race earlier today, and gotta give your hats off to Wyatt Bricacek, who shows up as a rookie, experienced in the cars, takes the lead, but it doesn't take long before John Hirschberg has a huge hit in turn 3.
Yeah, really unfortunate. We had a great start to the race. The first half was clean and really captivating, but this brought out a safety car that led to a restart with a couple of rookies, teammates up in front, and we thought we were going to have a great duel to the finish, but unfortunately, it wasn't that much longer, and Sifford and Thenis got together. Those two cars eliminated in that collision, and it led to a lengthy cleanup, Brian, which meant we didn't get that fireworks at the end of the race that we were hoping for.
Yeah, we end under full course caution, which nobody wanted to see. Weston Workman makes it 3 on the season, right? So both rounds at Daytona and then today, and he'll start from pole today. But I was talking about Wyatt Bricacek and Titus Sherlock, who show up rookies in the championship. This is their first appearance here at VP Racing SportsCar Challenge. Well, what a great job both of them did for Tony Driver development.
Oh, they were fantastic, and especially Titus Sherlock, who does not have much sports car experience, just a couple of Ferrari Challenge starts on the resume. What we saw was him get more and more comfortable as the race progressed. He got the track position and started to match his teammates' times. Really curious what we'll see with him starting a little bit closer to the front here in race 2.
Speaking of closer to the front, I expected to see a larger gap between the prototypes and the GSX class just behind. They won about 5 or 6 cars. There's that gap. They've kind of backed off a little bit. Workman on the pole back there in his Toyota. But speaking of on the pole, Bricacek in the number 30. Good jump. Stay in line across the line, everybody does. This was a good start.
Now, what we wanted to see, clean up to the top of the hill, Tuno, pretty aggressive there, guarding the inside line against the challenge from Sherlock. Sherlock taking a peek to the inside there, has to back out of it. That opens the door to the outside, and here comes Thenis now sweeping around. That's a backup car. That's going to a different chassis, but he's not waiting around, is he? Really good job.
Yeah, it's interesting that Venus started the year and the race this morning in the older model Ligier, the JSP 320, and then after the incident that he had with Siffert, he switched to a new car, and the new car is indeed one of the new model cars. I'm surprised he wasn't running it before. Great battles here through turn 12 as they head into 13 and 14, the carousel.
Gives the position back that time. That was Sherlock able to get back to the inside and grab the spot back. I'm with you, very surprising, but maybe there's a case to be made that it's worth going with the tried and true platform. That's what Venus had done, but unfortunately, car 2 damaged in race number 1. The good news is they had this option. They could roll off the trailer, get it out on track, and he's making the most of it here in the opening lap.
Well, we talk about the new car, obviously in the hands of Wyatt Brickencheck. He has the newer chassis as well, that Ligier JSP 325. It's slightly heavier because it has a different power plant in the back, twin turbo V6 in the newer car versus the V8 in the older car. So it's a little bit heavier, the newer car is, and perhaps around the racetrack with a lot of transitional characteristics like Circuit of the Americas has, maybe you want that lighter car.
Yeah, definitely a case to be made for that. Whatever the case, we're seeing one of those newer Ligiers look strong here in the form of Brickencheck, who's been able to pull away to a 2.3-second lead. Titus Sherlock, though, his teammate, who finished second in the first race earlier today, now starting to reel in Oscar Tuno after making quick work of the car he was fighting with earlier. It looks like that was actually Sufi, not Venus. My apologies, I misidentified that earlier. Tuno leaving the door open slightly, and Sherlock late on the brakes. Really great job getting it wound up and avoiding any contact.
And then Danny Sufi riding shotgun on that duo just in front of him, and wow, you see Sherlock get really loose. The back end of that Ligier stepping out as he's doing everything he can to stay with Tuno in front of him. Interesting, you've got a Ligier leading, then Duquesne, Ligier, Duquesne.
Yeah, how about that? So good balance at the front of this field, although I think we're starting to see those Ligiers come to the front. Unfortunately, bad news for Farhan Siddiqui. He was an early pit caller in race 1, had some kind of a technical issue they could never really resolve, and he's reported slow on track once again here in the early stages of race 2.
That's just so disappointing for Siddiqui, because we talked about his improvement since last year, and he showed up at Daytona running really well. We mentioned earlier today the fact that you can bring a coach with you in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge this year and let that coach drive the car in the first session. Jagger Jones, Siddiqui's coach, and has really helped him out a lot. But that mechanical problem in the race 1, perhaps it's raising its head again here in race number 2 weekend.
I really hate to see that. He had a pretty strong run, I thought, at Daytona. Looked like he was getting stronger and more comfortable in that car. In the meantime, battles raging all throughout the GSX field. It's Weston Workman, who's perfect on the season. He leads this race, but further back, pretty good fight breaking out here. At the front of it is the 91 of Dan Ammon, who's got his Porsche up into the 5th spot, but breathing down his neck is Rafa Martinez, who was particularly strong, I thought, just off the podium in race 1 earlier today.
Yeah, good stuff. This is a great battle, and Martinez had a good run in race number 1, but Ammon really stepped up his game since showing up here at Circuit of the Americas. And right now, this great battle between Porsche and Toyota. They come down the back straightaway and into turn 12.
Well, this is a great track and a great opportunity for Rafa Martinez. This is a place where he got his first baptism of motorsports, did a lot of laps here early in his career. He probably knows this track better than any other, and so not a surprise to see him running strong as he has all weekend long. Sister car as well, giving him some great data to measure himself against. That's Weston Workman, who leads this race. So Rafa Racing well represented. Right now, Rafa a bit on the back foot, but starting to put some pressure here on Dan Ammon here for the 5th position.
Well, I understand Mark Austin getting a warning for blocking. We saw a warning earlier in race number 1 for John Brell aboard the 81. So, you know, this racetrack, Ryan, is wide as it can be up the front straightaway. It's really tempting to try to react to a car behind you once that car pops out and you pull over in front of him. You can't do that. If you're going to make a move, you got to make it proactive. Right now, Tuno cannot shake car just behind him, Titus Sherlock, the rookie here in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. And Tuno doing everything he can. We talked about the difference in the weather from qualifying to race number 1, but this weather now is kind of coming back into the qualifying weather that we had yesterday in the afternoon. Shadows falling on the racetrack, temperatures falling, and the track temperature about 12 degrees cooler than it was in race number 1 this morning with that sun beating down on this asphalt.
Well, track conditions are certainly different than they were for race 1. You mentioned the change in the ambient and track temperature. That's part of it. But also remember, there was a NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race won by Shane Van Gisbergen earlier today, which put down a ton of rubber from a different manufacturer on this racetrack as well. That's something else that these drivers will have to adapt to here in real time. Put it all together, and the track conditions are likely about as different as you could expect, barring wet weather or something like that from race 1 to race 2, even though they were just a few hours apart.
White Bricacek is continuing to stretch that lead. This battle for second between Tunho and Sherlock continues to rage. Sufi not letting him get away, but this is where Sherlock has probed multiple times, releases the brake, kind of rolls the speed through, but a little much, and that's going to give Tunho a shot to come back.
And he's going to try and roll the outside, now crossing back over to the inside. This is a great part of the racetrack for this, the way it twists and turns back and forth. It leads to a lot of overlap, a lot of crossovers. Right now, though, Titus Sherlock seems to have this on lockdown. He's got the move complete. He's now up into the second spot, but the problem for the youngster, the reigning Formula Regional Americas champion, is he's now 7+ seconds behind his teammate Wyatt Bricacek. He was getting closer on pace to Wyatt in the opening race, but he's dug himself a bit of a hole by just how long it's taken him to get up to second place here today.
Well, obviously, the Formula Car experience that Sherlock has is paying big dividends, but this car is going to feel different to him. There's a similarity to it because of the aerodynamics, but the weight of this car is going to be different, and the way that you need to approach the braking is different because you have such a large under tray, flat floor all throughout the bottom of that car, and so he's going to have to learn how to adapt, and learning he is doing because he has been impressive from the get-go.
Oh, he has. I was really excited to see him here this weekend when he was a late addition to the entry list. He's taking over the entry that Lincoln Day, by the way, drove at Daytona. It's a completely different driver lineup for the Tony Driver Development team here in the second race weekend of the season. Brady Golan was on USF Pro Championships duty in St. Petersburg here this weekend, so Wyatt Bricacek stepped into the 30, and then Titus Sherlock jumped into the 95 that, again, Lincoln Day drove back at Daytona. And again, he comes with a glittering resume in single-seaters, but just not much experience in sports cars, and I was curious to see how quickly he would adapt. He's been a little bit off of his teammate in each of the sessions, but that gap has closed with each session that's transpired, and I think we could have seen a good battle at the front of the field at the end of race 1 had it not been for those 2 full course yellows that effectively put it into any hope of a fight to the finish in that race.
Well, great battles here in GSX. This is the same duo that we were watching a little bit earlier, the 81, this time Abrell, I believe, is that Martinez there behind him. But GSX has been kind of a barn burner at Daytona as well, and the race earlier today was good. The car count is not big right now in GSX. It'll grow throughout the season, but the fights have been epic.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got 2 distinct groups, I think. The top 2, Weston Workman, Courtney Crone, these are young pros that are trying to use this as a jumping point to launch their motorsports careers. And then you've got others that come in where racing might not be the full-time occupation, or likely isn't the full-time occupation, but it's a passion. It's more than a hobby, I think it's safe to say. So Crone and Workman, they're pretty close together on pace, but then this group behind them, they're also pretty evenly matched, and many of them are fighting for that bronze subcategory championship here in 2026 too, which adds a little bit of extra intrigue to some of these battles in the mid-pack.
All right, leaders beginning to work their way through GSX traffic, and It is actually the 91 of Dan Ammon. I misidentified him earlier. My apologies there. And I'm not sure Ammon knows that the leader is there, and that was close at the apex of 20. That is going to give Martinez a run up the front straightaway.
Exactly what Rafa Martinez was hoping to see there. It balked Ammon, as you said, on the exit. He comes from single-make Porsche racing. Whoa, sweeping across the bow of Martinez that time. Rafael did a great job seeing that coming, made sure he got the car wound up and avoided any contact. These two, I think, would have raced against each other in Porsche Sprint Challenge over the last couple of years, so they do know each other a little bit, but in different platforms here this weekend. Ammon in the Porsche for the Vintage Racing Company squad, and then Rafa, who's stepping into his second season of GT4 racing aboard the Supra, looking like he's getting more and more comfortable. This has been a really good scrap since the drop of the green flag.
Well, for Ammon, another one of those drivers who has his coach with him, and a very good one, Owen Trinkler, very accomplished race car driver. I'm not sure if Owen was in the car earlier today or not, but it's two kind of different approaches. For Dan, he's got Owen Trinkler that he can put in the car in the first session, and for Rafa Martinez, he doesn't need that because he's got a teammate in Weston Workman that he gets his data from. So it's two different approaches, and both of them seem to be paying pretty good dividends because Ammon having a great tussle right now with Martinez.
Well, there's next to nothing between these two, comparing their best lap times, less than a tenth of a second between the pair of them. Now, though, they have that traffic coming through. This is the multi-class racing that you talked about right at the open. Tsuno very brave around the outside. He had no choice but to go out there, but there's that risk of picking up some marbles or something like that. He's able to clear them without too much trouble, but another close call there in turn 20. Ammon sees, looks like that Sufi slide up the inside, and again it costs him momentum out of the final corner.
Yeah, that hesitation after you've turned in when you want to be picking up the throttle, but instead you've got to be checking up a little bit, has cost him dearly. Ammon's going to look back to the inside, nothing doing. Martinez is through now. Once he's through, can he stay there? Because Ammon has been super quick the entire time. We'll see what Dan has to come back on Rafael Martinez.
Well, now we get to see what Martinez can do without a car in front of him. He could run his own race, run his own line, and I'm curious if he can't perhaps just pull out a bit of an advantage here now that he's clear. And at least early on, it looks like he's trying to do just that. But he's got some work to do. He's got about 5 seconds to overcome to try and run down John Brell, who's up in the 4th spot. Not too far up the road. There's time to run him down, but he's got his work cut out for him, that's for sure.
Well, we saw full course cautions, obviously, in race number 1. We ended under 1, and I don't want to see any of them, but think about that. This race changes complexion if, for some reason, there's a full course caution. Everybody's going to be back together. So far from over with, 45-minute sprint race, and we still have just inside 32 minutes to go, 31 and a half, in fact. And so there is time to get this done. You just keep focusing forward and hitting your marks. But one of the things that we've seen here, Ryan, as we watch the LMP3 cars come through GSX is, like we talked about, multi-class racing. And this is why these drivers want to be here. They want to learn their craft so that they can move on up, like the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, where it is all about multi-class racing. I was kind of surprised at Daytona. There were some drivers that I thought had some pretty good experience that seemed to get caught out by the different class traffic and the different speeds and stuff, and lost positions because of it. And you can tell the closing rate between the prototype and the GSX car is substantial, not only down the straightaway, but the cornering speed through these mid to high speed corners where the aerodynamics of the prototype really come into play.
No question about it. And part of the reason I think that this is an attractive proposition for drivers with aspirations of making it up to the WeatherTech Championship is the fact that it's kind of a mini WeatherTech Championship in and of itself, with a top prototype class and then a GT class. And so you're constantly dealing with mixed class racing, out of class traffic. It's great preparation for if you ultimately get the chance to step up to the big show and race in races like the Rolex 24 at Daytona. For drivers like a Titus Sherlock, for example, who comes from single-seater racing, where you're used to sharing the track exclusively with cars that are identical to your own. This is a whole new skill set, and it's a great way to learn in preparation for a burgeoning sports car racing career.
And remember, we'll have 4 events this year in the VP Racing Sports Car Challenge that are endurance events, not 12-hour, not 6-hour, but 2-hour races. So it brings multi-drivers into the equation. You'll have 2 drivers in each car. You'll do pit stops, all of that, continuing that learning curve, and that's an expansion of this program for 2026, and a lot of the teams, I think, are excited about it.
Exactly. Again, the idea is to make sure drivers, when they make that step up to the top IMSA series, have just that little bit more preparation, whether it's multi-class racing, whether it's endurance style driving. It's a different mindset when you go from sprint racing to an endurance format, and you're mimicking that in a smaller sample size in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. I'm really excited about the addition of the endurance races, and it could also provide a new entryway into the IMSA paddock, because later in the season we'll see the debut of a new class for a BMW Cup car that debuted in 2026, and that again just adds another entry path for aspiring sports car drivers to get into IMSA, starting here in VP Challenge and then ultimately moving your way on up.
Now I'm watching Wyatt Brickacheck right now, and he's just comfortable, Ryan. You know what it's like. You've driven race cars. He is in a place right now where everything just fits. The shoe fits. It's comfortable. He's able to do with the car what he needs to. He's confident. We saw him work through traffic. Even when traffic closed down on him a little bit, didn't panic, wasn't abrupt with the car, stayed where he needed to be. That's both his experience in type and also getting comfortable with this racetrack, this team, and this multi-class setting. So exceptional job right now. And you look at his fastest lap, he's 9/10 of a second quicker than anybody else in the LMP3 category right now in his Ligier chassis. So really, really good stuff. And that's not just for Wyatt and Titus Sherlock, who's doing a great job as well. That Tony driver development team has done an excellent job of giving those 2 pilots really, really good race cars here at Circuit of the Americas.
It's a great addition to the paddock to have Nathan Toney and his team as part of this. They've spent a lot of time operating cars, primarily in the Formula Regional Championship, which is effectively the American Formula 3 series. They also have operated in USF4, so they've got some experience with young drivers and bringing them up through the ranks, and this is a logical next step for them. They've got a lot of drivers who maybe get to a point in their careers where they don't want to pursue open wheel racing any further and are eyeing entering into sports cars instead, and this provides that next step in their pyramid, in their ladder system. I think really, really logical, and it's a smart group there running that team. Nathan Toney himself heavily involved in engineering and strategy with Inter Europol in the WeatherTech Championship in recent years, in addition to running his own program.
The Canadian John Brell with a problem there aboard the 81. Kingpin Racing, that Toyota Supra, on pit lane. The crew there at the driver's side door, they didn't seem to be in a big hurry. Anytime you come into the pit lane in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge, you're going well down in the order, so they knew that was going to happen. But car seems to be back on track and everything's fine. I didn't see the hood come up. I didn't see a crew member over on the passenger side working with any of the electronics, so not sure what was up, but super back on track, and Brell will see if he can at least finish the day having fun here at COTA. You know, the sun beginning to set. It was interesting to listen to Brickacheck after qualifying because it was dark, and he said, you know, I have some experience racing these cars in the nighttime, so it was comfortable for me. I don't know that a lot of the other drivers do. I don't think we're going to have darkness by the time we get to the checkered flag today, but you can see racetrack, a lot of it really being put in the shadows of the grandstands and the buildings from here at Circuit of the Americas. And as the cool temperatures come in and the track settles down a little bit, the cars are just going to get faster and faster.
Yeah, I think the headlights aren't on just for show at this point. There are sections of the track where it's probably nice to have that, as Titus Sherlock goes a little bit wide outside of turn 20. That's one of the areas that race control will be monitoring. They've got a system of issuing a warning, a second warning, and then penalties start to creep in, and they get increasingly more severe as you start to accrue track limits violations. But as long as you don't do too many of them, it's all well and good. Meanwhile, trouble here for the leader, working his way through some traffic. Wyatt Brickacheck has caught the veteran Mirko Schultes, and Mirko fighting to try and stay on the lead lap. He lost the lead lap just before the full course yellow, first full course yellow in race 1. He does go a lap down here, but had he been able to hang on in race 1, that full course yellow would have let him catch back up to the rest of the field. So that's part of the reason he was fighting so hard to try and stay ahead, but ultimately nothing he could do about the outright pace of Bricicek in the leading car.
Tell you what, that's the first time that I've seen Wyatt Bricicek, I won't call it a mistake, but I would call it forcing something that he didn't need to force, and that was that pass over that GSX car. I think he thought he had it, so he was just going to go ahead and put it in there, but with a 9+ second lead, that was a pass that didn't need to happen right then and right there. I know sometimes if you check up a little too much, you can feel like you get off of your rhythm, but that one kind of took my breath away there in turn 12. He got past Mirko, and you could see that he paused for just a second thinking, should I or should I not? And then he said, I'm going to. And with 9+ seconds, like I said, I'm not sure that you need to. So that was the first time I've seen him do anything that kind of took my breath away.
Yeah, he's been really steady in these traffic situations, which you would expect. He brings experience from the European Le Mans Series and the Asian Le Mans Series to this equation. I mean, he finished 4th in the European Le Mans Series LMP3 Championship as recently as 2023. Those are pretty competitive fields, so he's been in these kinds of situations before, but did force the issue a little bit here as we look at the replay. And Mirko, again, not going to make it super easy. Plus, there's the GSX traffic to deal with, too. And my, oh my, that was tight at the exit.
You see what I mean? How he kind of paused and was like, should I or should I not? And when he did, the door started to close. And that's kind of that, I get it if Mirko was for position and you're like, hey, I got to go because he's right there. But, yeah, he made it, so it doesn't matter. And nobody else will look at it again. But that one just kind of, it caused me to kind of take a breath. I'm not sure whether it caused Wyatt to take a breath or not, but kind of caught my attention, that's for sure.
Well, he's a little more patient, more circumspect this time as he works his way past the 68 of Rafael Martinez. By the way, we saw Titus Sherlock run wide a couple of laps ago at the exit of turn 20. He has officially been warned by race control for abusing track limits. So again, a couple of warnings are issued before any penalties are handed out, but that will make his attempt to run down the race leader and his teammate Bricicek that much harder because he has to be circumspect. A penalty for track limits could cost him this hard-earned second position that he holds right now.
Well, you'll get 2 warnings, like you said. You get a warning, a final warning, and then a 10-second post-race penalty. That's the next one, and right now he doesn't have 10 seconds, I don't believe, over Oscar Tunho to give away. So you've got to be careful about that. And again, I think the hardest thing of racing is not necessarily driving the car. Obviously, that's a challenge, and there are some drivers who are exceptional at it, but it's controlling your emotion and your mind, right? I mean, for Sherlock right now, going outside track limits is not going to do you anything. You're 10 seconds plus in arrears to the leader, and the leader is turning faster lap times than you, and you've got probably 5 or 6 seconds over the next car in line. So be smart, keep it on the island, and don't get called for a mistake that could take that position away from you. That's the difficulty, because you're pushing as hard as you can, but at some point in time you need to realize this pushing that I'm doing is going to lead me to a place that I don't want to be and that I shouldn't be, and it might actually take away some of my hard-earned gains.
I do think part of this, though, is that inexperience in this car, and he's getting closer to the limit each lap, finding a bit more speed, because just prior to running wide, he had set his best lap of the race. So, again, there's some exploration going on here for a young driver who's not thinking about points, wasn't there in the season opener, so he's just thinking about maximizing these results right here. And again, flirting with the edge, a little bit loose as well. Car starting to twitch as he gets up and over those curbs. That was really smart, I think, coming into the S's here. He had a chance to really force the issue. This is going to cost him time, but ultimately kept the car in one piece, Brian, and that is a really good sign for a young driver learning about multi-class racing.
I'll tell you what, hats off to Mark Austin. He didn't get caught up in his rearview mirror in that AMG Mercedes. He didn't get caught up in that rearview camera looking at the prototype behind him. held his line, and when he got to a spot where he knew the prototype could be faster, he stayed tucked to the right a little bit and made sure that Titus Sherlock had plenty of room to get by. In this multi-class racing format, Ryan, you really have to be smart, not only passing when you're in the prototype, but when you're in the GSX car, knowing how to be passed as well. And that allows that prototype through without holding them up very much, and it keeps you out of danger, and it allows you to lose as little time as possible when you're being passed.
Talked about this in race one, but Mark is from just down the road in COTA, Texas, which is a suburb effectively of Austin, not far at all from the state capital of Texas. So he knows this track well. He ran these races here in this series a year ago, has that experience of knowing how the traffic is going to interplay with the different classes through certain sections of the track, and really heads up driving there for the local driver, driving for Lone Star Racing under the Mad Joker Racing by Lone Star Racing moniker here this week. He had a really cool livery on that car as well. You can't miss it. And right now he's in position perhaps to come away with another podium.
Yeah, AJ Peterson, who runs Lone Star Racing, great guy, always puts a very, very fast race car on the track, and a lot of big wins and some pretty special races for AJ. You know, the other thing AJ does really well is he's a great barbecue master.
Really?
Really good with he's really good with his smoker. We trade recipes from time to time, and he's got some good stuff going. So if you're ever around the garage area and you smell some really good barbecue, AJ may actually have his grill going. So stop by Lone Star.
That is good information to file away, Brian.
There you go. See? Yep. I'm here for you, Ryan.
I never doubted it once.
And here you go, more prototypes coming through. Austin there, we were just talking about him. Mirko Schultes there just in front of Danny Sufi. And man, look at how those shadows have really formed back there in that horseshoe where the grandstands are, that you see absolutely packed on a Formula One weekend. They'll be packed tomorrow as well for the NASCAR event here. A lot of the crowd may be out wandering around the midway a little bit now and not necessarily in the grandstands, but what an absolutely fantastic facility. I can remember when Circuit of the Americas was just a thought, and saw pictures of bulldozers driving around in the countryside here around Austin, an area that I know well, being from Texas, and I can remember thinking, there's no way. There's really no way this is actually going to happen. And now you look at it, it is a gem of the full-time road course circuits here in North America and certainly around the world, host of Formula One Grand Prix and sports car racing. And I think pretty much every day of the year when they can, their cars on track here, whether that's testing or car clubs, what have you. Final warning now for the 95 for track limits. So Titus Sherlock having fun, but the officials are saying you need to keep it on the island. So the next call will be a 10-second post-race time penalty for Sherlock, and so he really needs the crew needs to make sure that he is getting that message.
Yeah, he needs to focus in, making sure he stays within those track limits. Taking a peek at him here, because Oscar Tunho has been able to hold station. Sherlock got around and pulled that 5-second gap, but it hasn't gotten any bigger. Tunho has been pretty quick here the last couple of laps, actually, and is hanging right there with Sherlock, and he is in for the championship. He had those 2 races at Daytona to start the season that were awfully dramatic, couple of wins, though, and really put him in good position. And what was lost, perhaps, in the race one earlier today, it wasn't a barn burner of an event for Tunho, but it was what he needed. The 2 cars that finished ahead of him aren't full season entrants, so he scored 3rd place points. That's great for him as he continues to build his points lead, and that's really what he needs to be thinking about, thinking big picture. But if he can up the speed a little bit, start to put some pressure on Sherlock, maybe he can force that mistake that makes the youngster step outside of the bounds slightly of track limits, and that could be the penalty that gives Tunho a crucial extra position in this race.
Yeah, it's crazy how points get awarded, and sometimes you earn them and sometimes they are given to you. And for Sherlock, he doesn't want to lose that position that he's in right now, but you know, he's going to hand points to Tunho if indeed that happens. And certainly Oscar's going to take him, right? When he gets that position, if Sherlock stays there. And you talk about the mindset of the driver. We were talking about that earlier. You need to understand the big picture. And so I think for Oscar Tuno, he certainly does. Right now, he knows he didn't have the car this weekend, and I wonder if the track layout is indicative of, hey, this is a little better for the Ligier than it is for the Duqueine. We've talked about that over the years. The Duqueine seems to be a car that has really good straight line speed, still good with putting the power down coming out of corners and stuff, but the Ligier just seems to be a little bit better in tighter circuits. That's what we have here with this national circuit, not the full circuit at Circuit of the Americas. So you kind of horses for courses, right? And perhaps the Ligier is just a little bit better suited for this track layout. But over the long run, we're going to go to racetracks where that Duqueine is definitely going to shine. And it's one of those things where you collect the points that you can on the day, and you keep the championship, the big picture in mind.
And I think we saw that at Daytona, didn't we? Which is traditionally a good track for the Duqueine. The new Ligier, though, it is worth noting, did seem to take a step forward in terms of being quick in the twisty stuff like usual, but actually not giving up as much on the straights. And we should mention, too, that this year for the first time, the new spec LMP3 cars are eligible, and there is no balance of performance between the older cars and the newer cars. They're just letting it play out naturally and organically. But to your point, I think Tuno did a good job with the 2 wins at Daytona. He did maximize those opportunities. Race 2, you know, maybe some of that advantage went away because it was in the wet. And you kind of maybe wanted some of the downforce that you would have in the Ligier versus the straight line speed, but he still, even though it took some help to get there, but he did come away with the victory. So I think he's done a good job maximizing what he's had here so far this season, albeit with a few ups and downs.
And I've watched Oscar this weekend, and I think he's driven very smart. To your point, it's like, don't throw it away doing silly things. Again, we said it just a minute ago, and my good friend Dorsey Schrader says this all the time. If you've got a third place car and you finish third, you won. If you've got a third place car and you crashed it trying to win, then you're stupid. Why? You know, you've got to understand, not every day is going to be your day. You want it to be, and you certainly set out with that goal in mind. But at some point in time, you have to be realistic about where you are. And when we think about championships, it's all the points that you gather all year long. It's not just this race or that race. So you need to collect maximum points everywhere you go. Don't walk away with minimal points or zero because you did something silly. Collect the most that you can and move on.
And to that end, Danny Sufi, who is in 4th, had a quiet race 1. We really didn't talk about him much, but came home 4th. Good bounce back for him. Race 2 at Daytona did not go terribly well. Was on the podium in race 1. Right now finds himself in 4th once again here in race 2. Another driver that calls Austin, Texas home. And it seems to me that it's been a quiet run, but a productive one for Danny Sufi here so far this weekend. Problems, though, for another car out of the LMP3 ranks.
Brian Thenis, we talked about moving to that backup car after the problems that he had. I don't think he's hit anything. I think he's done the very professional thing that you come to understand Brian Thenis knows how to do. He has a problem. He's tried to pull this car out of the way, as far off the racetrack as he possibly can. Perhaps even he's gotten behind barriers to a safe spot so that he's not affecting anything else on the racetrack. But Thenis kind of sitting there in the car. He hadn't unplugged his radio just yet. I think he's talking to the crew, telling them, okay, we're done. I'm climbing out. And then he'll climb out of that 77. That was the backup car. This has not been a weekend that Brian Thenis is going to want to remember.
Boy, tough day for Brian for sure. And you can see him walking with a little bit of a hitch in the step. Had the crash in race 1 with Jeremy Sifford. Unfortunately, Jeremy unable to take part here in the second race of the day. They couldn't get the car repaired and couldn't source a spare. So he and Jonathan Hirschberg, who also had a big crash earlier today in race 1, didn't take part at all. Thenis at least was able to get out for race 2, but something clearly amiss. Did find, we're told, the cutoff where he could pull that car into a safe spot, and that means we're able to stay green. So the veteran, leaning on his experience, does the sportsman-like thing, but a tough weekend for the driver who's the back-to-back Bronze Cup champion here in VP Challenge LMP3 competition.
Tell you what, we were just talking about doing smart things, and remember a little bit earlier I was talking about Wyatt Bricacek and a pass that he made at turn 12 that kind of took my breath away, and then what I just saw Oscar Tunjo do was completely the opposite, and I think it was in turn 19. We saw him come up on those GSX cars, Ryan, and he got past the first one, and there was the opportunity to perhaps get his nose in on the second one and get by, and he didn't take the opportunity because there was no one on his rear wing. His nearest competitor in front of him is well out there, and it just wasn't worth the risk. He measured that, looked at it, and said, this is not worth it. And he paused, he hesitated. It cost him time on the racetrack. But guess what? That Duquesne chassis doesn't have a mark on it right now. He's got 4 Michelin tires that have air in it. No penalty for making contact with another car, and he continues on in his podium position. And that was just a good, heady drive, like we were talking about, making good decisions, knowing what you've got, knowing where you are, understanding the situation, and making the proper decision. Hats off to him, because that could have gone south in a heartbeat if he had gotten greedy and said, I have to do this.
Keeps him in the fight. He's still within a 10-second penalty and then some of Titus Sherlock. And remember, Titus is on his final warning for track limits with 8 minutes and 17 seconds to go. So that really has to be the goal here for Tunjo. Credit to him for not forcing the issue there when he can see his prey down the road and he's trying to reel them in. And tough to be patient under those circumstances, but he did the right thing. And now, again, as long as he can stay within those 10 seconds, you feel like you have a chance. All it takes is one mistake from Titus Sherlock. Go off track, go a little bit wide, and all of a sudden, second place is yours.
Well, I mean, just think about it and look at what's in front of Wyatt Bricacek right now. He's got a GSX car, then he has a slower LMP3 car. Remember Daytona in race number 2. Yes, it was raining, and so that made it very difficult, but we had 4 lane changes, I think, in the last 20 minutes, and some of those came at the hands of problems working through lap traffic. So it's not over until it's over. Inside 10 minutes to go, closing down on 7 minutes to go, but you have to race all 45 minutes, and anything can happen. You and I know that. We've seen it here. Think about the Gebhardt squad who ran out of fuel with 2 laps to go last year within 50 yards of each other because of a miscalculation or a sensor error on the refueling rig when they fueled the cars before the race. Anything can happen. It is not over until the checkered flag falls.
That was about as stunning of a set of circumstances at the end of a motor race that I have ever seen. The fact that not 1 but 2 cars seemed to stop simultaneously, and then we pieced it together. They were 2 team cars, which kind of led us to connect the dots. Maybe it's a fuel-related issue, and that turned out to be the case. That was absolutely gobsmacking a year ago. And it was Oscar Tunjo, by the way, who sits in third. It was one of those 2 cars that really lost out in that here in it was his season and series debut in VP Challenge a year ago. So he'll remember that. He'll know very well that anything can happen late in these races, and part of the reason he's certainly not giving up in his pursuit of Titus Sherlock and Wyatt Bricacek as well.
And I think this is probably one of the more difficult times for a race car driver, Ryan. 6 minutes to go for Wyatt Bricacek. He's had a dream drive. I said earlier, he is comfortable in this car. You can see it. The car is underneath him. Obviously a very good handling race car, and he is comfortable in it, and that's why he's able to run the laps that he is. But there's no one around him. He has a 14, almost a 15-second lead, and it's real easy to lose concentration for just a moment. But when you do that at well over 100 miles an hour, working through the S's like he is here, and you're coming up on slower GSX traffic, it can all go south in a heartbeat. And so this is where the crew really needs to stay on. You keep focusing for me, buddy. Keep focusing. Good lap, and just continue to kind of keep your driver on point, focused where he needs to be as he comes up now on Mirko Schiltes, who has not had the best of weekends. Mirko, a very experienced race car driver and just really hadn't seemed to have the car underneath him here this weekend. Makes it easy for Bricacek to get by, but the focus for Wyatt in these waning laps, without a lot going on around him, can sometimes kind of lead you into a problem.
Well, that's where the team comes in. You're right, to stay engaged with him on the radio, let him know what the gap is, let him know what he needs to do here with 4.5 minutes to go. 25 years old, from Johnstown, Colorado, got his start coming through the Lucas Oil School of Racing and into their Formula Car Series. That was back in 2017. Came up through the open wheel ranks here in the States, racing in F4, US, up into USF 2000, ultimately Indy Pro 2000, before making the switch to sports cars, and really has focused on LMP3 in particular, although does have some GT racing on the CV, including a class podium at the 24 Hours of Spa just last summer, which is no mean feat. That was a pretty hotly contested silver class, and they, I think, were second in that class, driving an Audi for Santaloc. So short career when you think just 25 years old, only been racing cars since 2017, but he's packed a lot into that time, and right now we'll be leaning on all of those experiences in different cars and different series all around the world, trying to prepare him to sweep the weekend here at Circuit of the Americas.
And I think that varied experience can be incredibly helpful to young drivers. We talked about Courtney Crone earlier. She's running second in GSX in her BMW from Carbon Motorsports, and really kind of the same thing. Driven a lot of different cars, but now wants to sit and concentrate right now on this GT4-based GSX class. And we talked about Steve Dinan earlier, what a great tutor as far as that goes. But what I'm impressed with, and there's Courtney Crone as Bricacek, the leader in LMP3 and overall, comes up to go by one more time. And there's that speed differential between those two classes. But two drivers right there who really have kind of done similar things from the standpoint of getting experience across multi-classes and then kind of focusing down on one thing. You learn a little bit from every car you drive, every experience that you have, and then when you take that and focus it, it's almost like a laser beam, and you see the result of it right now. Bricacek leading in LMP3, looking for his second win on the weekend. Courtney Crone with a good second place run going in GSX.
It's an interesting point you make. We talked about it some in race one, the wide net she has cast in her motorsports career, everything from midgets at the Chili Bowl to racing in F1 Academy all around the world last year, prototypes, GT cars, you name it. But at a certain point, trying to bring all of those different experiences together and focusing them in on a single project, that seems to be maybe what will unlock the next step for Courtney, and that's the goal here this year.
White Bricacek looking to make it 2 for 2, and when you show up to a brand new series and do what he's done here today at Circuit of the Americas, you've got to be very proud. The other thing we talked about is this team, Tony Driver Development. This program has put 2 very fast cars on the racetrack, and what I'm impressed with, the drivers, the team, but really the series as well. Look at the young drivers now that want to come here, and this is exactly what IMSA wanted to do when this idea came about of VP Racing Sports Car Challenge, and it's now beginning to attract some young stars who want to use it as that stepping stone, that ladder to bigger and better things as the white flag waves. Final lap for Bricacek, trying to make it 2 for 2, and Weston Workman trying to make it 2 for 2 on the weekend, Ryan, but 4 straight in the 2026 season.
And if he could pull it off, he would remain undefeated in GT4 or GSX competition, which is remarkable. Remember how long it took Weston to get his first win in GR Cup? It took like a season and a half, where he was so close on so many occasions, and we just had the sense if he could finally win one, the floodgates would open. Well, that's what happened, as he ended up with a dominant GR Cup championship season last year. That has just spilled over into his inaugural season of VP Racing Sports Car Challenge, flexing the kind of muscle we expected from him when the season began.
And I don't know if Bricacek is going to catch Workman before they get to the front straightaway or not, but if I'm Weston, I'm going to slow down. because I want him to go by, right? I don't want to have to do another lap. I think he'll clear him anyway based upon the speed differential of the two classes, but just kind of noticing that, and I would think that, you know, the guys down at Rafa Racing would say, you can just let him go on by and your race will be over with right now. And I think what we're going to get is the two winners underneath the checkered flag at almost the exact same time. Congratulations to Wyatt Brickacheck and Weston Workman, the two winners in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge, race number 2 here at Circuit of the Americas.
Well, thanks, guys. That was a great shot.
Yeah,
for
I know,
us.
that was great.
Perfect. Couldn't have planned it any better.
Sun setting, kind of that beautiful sunset. The light was just right for the photographers. I'll tell you what, the day was just right, and the cars were just right for those two drivers as well. And these are two guys that you're going to hear a lot about in the future. And I was talking about young drivers coming now to VP Racing Sports Car Challenge, and the mix of drivers that we have, experienced drivers not doing this for a living, others that want to use it as that catapult to their professional career. You're looking at these two drivers right here, these two young guys, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. And you will hear their names in the future, guaranteed.
Totally agree. I mean, we've seen, if you're an IMSA fan, you've seen why Brickacheck, he did do the Salem 6 Hours at the Glen last year, driving for Lone Star Racing. And so he's been around the IMSA paddock from time to time. But I think this is kind of his introduction to a lot of the IMSA fans here stateside. He's done so much of his racing overseas in recent years. Great to have him here in North America. No idea what the future holds for him in this car. Again, this is not the driver who started the season in this car. That was Brady Golan. So to be determined what the driver lineup looks like moving forward. But if I'm Nathan Toney and the Toney Driver Development Team, you have to like what you saw here this weekend. Picture perfect. 2 poles, a couple of wins. Doesn't get much better than that.
No, on the podium, you know, you're filling the podium in both races, right? First and second. So impressive stuff for the team and the drivers. Take a look at the results. We'll start with the LMP3 class. Obviously, unofficial results. Everybody's got to pass tech at the end of it. And there's the beautiful Texas State flag, the Lone Star. Toney Driver Development, we said it, first and second. And for Wyatt Brickacheck, what a great weekend. Titus Sherlock, he is learning this platform of the LMP3 machinery, and he is right there with his teammate. I would love to see these guys back for the rest of the season. But hey, let's get Brady Golan back as well, huh?
Oh, no question. He was super fast at Daytona, and why not just add a little more firepower to the class? 2 third-place finishes for Oscar Tunho. He's the championship leader, had a couple of wins in Daytona. Would have loved to have seen victory lane here at COTA, but 2 really strong results from a points perspective.
Talk about strong results. Rafa Racing, the number 8 Toyota Supra, Weston Workman, another great weekend, and really got big shoes to fill. You look back at the 2025 champion, Kiko Porter, and he was perfect on the season. So Weston, hey, he's got pressure on his shoulders, right? Looking through the rest of the field. Man, for Brian Thenas, pulls out the backup car after the incident in race number 1 and has some type of a mechanical, and really Farhan Siddiqui as well. Bad luck for him. This is a weekend those guys are going to want to forget. John Hirschberg not able to make the field after that big crash, and same for Jeremy Siffert there after that incident in race number 1.
Got a feel for those guys. We said it at the time with the close proximity between the 2 races. There was the chance for misfortune to compound, and that's really what we saw for them. And I really wish we could have seen them here in race 2, but it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's why we race, right? And as you look down, drivers climbing out of the car for Brickacheck, shaking hands with this team. And that team has a lot to celebrate tonight. I would think that, hey, we're in Austin. So margaritas might be on the menu tonight for the celebration. And Weston Workman, there he is again, another victory. And there's that serious face when he climbs out of the car. You can smile, Weston. You got another big trophy coming your way, buddy, and some more celebrations there on the victory podium.
Well, I think he might be on to the next challenge. He's already thinking about what's to come, much as he was at the end of race 1 earlier today. That's part of his process. He's super serious about this. And again, a star of the future, if not a star of the present. He is really someone to keep an eye on moving forward.
Well, and maybe that's the problem right there, Ryan, for Brian Thenas his weekend. Full moon is out, so maybe bad things happening. We talk about sprint races and endurance races in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. Next 2 races on the calendar are going to be 2-hour endurance races, Sebring and Circuit of the Americas. We'll be back here. Those will both be 2-hour races, and then we'll get back to sprint racing, and Ryan and I will be back with you for the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course in June. VP Racing Sports Car Challenge did not disappoint. We knew it wouldn't. Some great racing. Ryan, you looking forward to Mid-Ohio?
Oh, can't wait. Great track, great challenge, and I think we'll see more of what we saw here today, which makes me excited.
Love this series, love the competition. We'll do it all over again in June from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course. For Ryan Marine, I'm Brian Till. We'll see you then, everyone. Take care.